Good morning, everyone. I'm Sarah Rivers, Senior Director of Connected Commerce here at IGA, and I'm excited to have our subject matter experts from Aperion here with us today. We're going to be diving into how electronic shelf labels have become more than just a price tag, from streamlining pricing updates and improving accuracy, and integrating with your other technologies in your store to create a powerful, user-friendly, and connected experience. So as you heard when you hopped on, you've been placed on mute, but if you have a question, just be sure to drop it in the chat and we'll answer those at the end here. So I'd like to introduce our panelists here and subject matter experts. We have Andrew, who's the sales manager. He has 20 years of industry experience in CPG, retail, and tech. He'll be giving a quick introduction to Aperion. Then we have Greg, who will give kind of a state of the market of electronic shelf labels. He's Aperion's business development leader, and he's had 30 years of industry experience in CPG, data, and tech. Tom will give a product overview. He's also in the business development area for Aperion, and he has 14 years of industry experience in retail tech. And then Tyler will give our integrations beyond price, so how things connect to your other store technologies. He's the senior solutions architect for Aperion, and he has 15 years of industry and retail experience. So thanks everybody for joining us. We're really excited to talk about this today. And Andrew, I'll turn it over to you.
Great, thank you so much, Sarah. And appreciate everybody's time this morning. This is going to be more of an informational discussion. Please bring any questions that you have. The folks who have joined me today from Aperion are truly the best in the industry and are ready to help you. So with that, we'll kick this thing off. So why are we here today? Well, essentially over the past year or so, IGA has been vetting Aperion as a partner in the electronic shelf label space. So through a process of elimination, it was determined that Aperion was best suited to serve your electronic shelf label needs as a reputable partner of the Independent Grocers Alliance. So we're honored to be here today talking to you. The team that is on here from Aperion today specifically focuses on serving the independent. So when you talk to Greg or you talk to Tom, you're not going to be splitting mind share with, national accounts, with Walmart, with Albertsons, Kroger, et cetera. We are dedicated and we love to serve the independent grocers in North America. So Aperion may not be as familiar of a name to some of you on this call. However, our parent company and in turn our grandparent company are pretty well known. So about 8-9 years ago now, Panasonic acquired Hussmann Corporation, and it was determined that retail tech was an area where we could truly help independents to thrive. So as previously mentioned, all the business development folks on this call specifically focus on the independent channel. But Aperion, while maybe not as well known of a name as Hussmann or Panasonic, is not new to the ESL world or the retail world. Over the last few years alone, we've installed over 10 million ESLs nationwide, and our team is focused specifically on grocery and convenience, so food retail only. I like to say that instead of being a tech company that happens to operate in retail, we're a retail company that happens to operate in technology. Personally, I came from Whole Foods Market not a long time ago and worked my way up through Coca-Cola as well. So I've spent a lot of time in retail on all sides of the business and truly understand what it is that you all do on a daily basis. So with that, I'll turn it over to my colleague, Greg Adamski, who's just going to talk a little bit about the state of the market and how it pertains to ESLs. So Greg, go ahead and take it away.
Excellent. Thank you, Andrew. So if I'm in your shoes, I'm sure a lot of you have said, hey, I'm hearing a lot about ESL, so I'm going to give you a little bit of like what's going on in the market. So why is the market moving to ESLs now? They've been out for a while, like a decade, but why now is the critical time? So a couple things. There's 4 things that I like to talk about. Number 1 is labor costs. So as you guys all probably feel the effects of labor costs, we continue to see, especially over COVID. And since then, the cost of labor continues to go up. With addition, I live in Jersey, and if you're in New York, Jersey, Connecticut, quality, as when I go to my local grocery store, I see the quality of labor, can deteriorate a little bit. So the combination of that cost going up and the labor quality going down is giving angst to that grocery retailer and saying, is now the time to switch from paper to digital. So that's the first thing. The second thing is national retailers are making the move. You might see in the press Walmart, Kroger, Albertsons, Aldi, even Lidl. They're all making the move to ESLs, and by the end of 2026, I know Walmart is forecasting to be done. The others will be done probably in 26, 27. But that national move is giving consumer awareness, and they're not just moving just for labor savings. They're doing it for a lot more than just labor savings. And that goes into my third reason, is increased functionality, right? So these tags originally 5 years ago was only about bullet number one. It was only about labor savings. But we do, and Tyler's going to speak a little bit about this on his portion, but the increased functionality of these things allow a greater ROI. So we integrate with e-commerce providers, price optimization companies. We do attribution. You can put digital coupons on here, so with a QR code. So the increased functionality of the ESLs drives the ROI, which ultimately, gives you guys the ability to do this profitably. And the fourth thing is the ability to change prices in real time, right? Obviously, we hear a lot about tariffs going on, and that, you have the ability to now, instead of Coca-Cola giving a price increase and waiting 2 weeks for that to happen, you can do this, daily. I have a customer in Philadelphia that, he has his price changes on fish all the time. So he now has the ability to change his salmon pricing, when the market goes up. He doesn't have to wait a week or wait 2 weeks for that to happen. So there's a lot of profitability in that. So those are the four critical things of why ESLs are moving fast now. And really, it comes down to ROI, right? So as you're thinking about this and moving to ESLs, it really comes down to, is this a good return on investment? My previous company, I worked for a company called Vestcom, which is one of the biggest paper provider. And yes, those paper tags may cost 14 or 15 cents. But when you add in 14, 15 cents times 8,000 or 10,000 price changes per week, and the labor to have Billy, who's 16, walk down the aisle and change all those prices, that adds up. So really, the great thing about these things is that in 18 to 24 months, you should start to see an ROI. And the more things that you add to it, versus just labor, again, price optimization and the like, you're going to garner a more favorable ROI. And what we do, Tom and myself, what we do is, when we start to kind of talk about, that migration to ESLs, we'll sit down with you and we'll kind of go over your data, and we'll have a spreadsheet and we can punch in your numbers, and you're able to see what your ROI would be with the numbers that you feel comfortable with, so that this isn't just a grandstanding of it's 18 to 24 months. We're going to show you how we get to that 18 to 24 month time period. Thanks, Andrew. I'm going to pass it over to Tom to talk a little bit about the product.
But thanks, Greg. And yeah, so talking about those use cases and how we get to those, the functionality of the tag is going to be very important to you. So as you can see on the screen, we've got lots of different variations of what we can do with it. I think some of the highlights I want to get towards you are, the flashing LED with 7 colors on it is a very important tool that we highlight in lots of different use cases. Everybody can think of examples of using it for e-commerce and doing your picking and ordering, but we have people who are now using it to make sure that they get all of their certain vendors ordered on certain days and using that LED light. So that's something that we can really leverage for you. The NFC and QR codes on them, most people aren't using the NFC, but they could in the future. But the QR code is a very big one, whether it's using it for a loyalty program or just clip right at the tag, right at the shelf. It's a very convenient way to bring new deals into the store and allow customers to get them right there and feel like they're getting that added value right at the tag. Of course, everybody's going to want to know the battery life. So you'll see we've got a 10-year battery life, and that's with changing the price twice a day and leveraging that LED on there for 30 minutes a day. So in reality, you know, we've had lots of retailers do their own simulated tests, and we think we're really going to see somewhere between 10 to 15 years of battery life for that. And then another great tool on this, and I'm just going to hit a couple of them here, is the page switch. So all of these ESLs have the ability to have 8 pages displayed within them. And so what we have people doing is taking out, you know, the ordering barcode. They're taking out, you know, information that may not be pertinent to the customer, but is helpful for the store, and dropping it onto a second page. And then the employee can say, oh, we're missing a spot in this shelf, let's look here, and then they can flip the page for 30 seconds. They can see that you have 10 on hand in the back. Next order date is next Wednesday. So they go back, pull some stock and put it on the shelf for you. The other thing we use with that is if you're having an event pricing type situation, you have a weekly wine club Wednesday and you want to price wine at 2 buy 2, get a third bottle for half off. You can have that flip over automatically from 6 to 8 p.m. and then at 8 p.m. it switches right back to that. So, you know, gives you a lot of fun functionality that comes into this, but also can help you, you know, attract customers, be a little bit more sticky, and, you know, enhance shopper experience along with, you know, your operational capacity. And then if we'll go to the next one, Andrew, we'll just talk a little bit about how we communicate to these ESLs and actually get the information on there. So I'll start with our software. There's a tag design software. It's pretty straightforward. I'm not very good at making PowerPoint slides, but it's a lot like making a PowerPoint slide, and even I can design a tag. I've done a couple in my life, but we've got really, really good project managers who work with Tyler on our team who, you know, to start out a project, they're going to ask you to send over all the scenarios that you have in your store, whether it's a BOGO, a clearance, manager's special, weekly special, whatever scenarios you're already using. We're going to ask you to send those to us. We're going to mock those up, and we're going to get your approval. And we're going to work through what you want your ESLs to look like, while we also train you on this, because at some point you're going to want to have ownership of this. And it's not the hardest thing in the world to train on, but there is a learning curve. So we figure let's get the first store out of the way, or get your store set up, and then we can get working on the future. So very user friendly. We're going to collaborate on it. We're also going to be there in the future. Let's say you train somebody to work on this, and then they decide, hey, I'm going to move, I'm not going to be around anymore, we need to get somebody else. That's all included in our software, pricing and everything. So no problem, you just call and we'll train you again, and we'll backstop you through that. And then the other piece is, how do we get all this information from our cloud-based software down to the ESL? So that's with our infrastructure. We have standalone access points. We call them APs. They run on 2.4 gigahertz on 100 proprietary channels. The main thing to know about this is if you've got Wi-Fi, or you've got phone, you've got security cameras, whatever you've got working on that 2.4 spectrum, we don't interfere with it because we're on the 100 proprietary channels speaking to ESLs only. And then it's all PoE, so you are going to have to pull a little bit of cable into your store to install these, unless you happen to have some Wi-Fi access points in your store that have USB ports on them. At that point, if they have enough amperage, we do have what we call a dongle that could plug into your existing Wi-Fi infrastructure and push that signal out from there. It's a little lighter, but most JPs don't have it, but it's always a nice option to look into. So I highly recommend taking a look at that if you decide to move forward. But then the thing I most recommend you doing is taking advantage of what Tyler's about to highlight right now and the use cases that he's going to talk about.
What a segue, Tom. Thank you. Hi, everybody. As you've heard, I'm the Senior Solutions Architect with Aperion. It's a very fancy title for figure it out and make it happen. I'm the guy that helps everybody kind of connect the dots, answers the questions, figures all that stuff out. as you can see on the slide here, we integrate with a variety of IoT solutions. Typically, the first question I hear is, but I use BR data. We love BR data. We already have a turnkey integration with them. Well, what about ECRS? We have a turnkey solution with them as well. What about S4? We've done that as well. It's not a big deal. We've yet to encounter a POS provider that we can't work with to get kind of your raw data. Then you think about, how can I make it better? What else can I feed onto the ESLs? And the question usually is, I don't pass that through my POS, right? I don't store all my digital coupons in BR data. I have it go through this other, pipeline. Cool. You can send that pipeline straight to us. So you'll see on the bottom, some of our current alliances might look familiar to you guys. You should see Instacart down there. We've got RSA for digital coupons and things like that. Inmar, we have a lot of attribution down there, Sifter, Swiftly, people like that. So it's really just meant to highlight the openness and ease that these connections can be made, right? And something too that tends to worry not necessarily smaller grocers, but smaller teams that might have to wear many hats, as I have done in the past as a retailer in the grocery space in Washington, is I don't have time to do this or figure this out. Right, like my one guy who's good at these integrations is already working on 6 other things. I'm not sure what to do. We offer these services to you as a part of what you're paying for, right? Like I've done custom integrations, I think at least 2 for each of the Aperion guys on the call for different customers for different reasons, right? We've got digital coupons, we've got Eversight with pricing, so pricing automation and things like that. But it's really just meant to get you thinking about how else these ESLs can be used outside of just, I set my price ups down and the tags flipped. Go to the next slide, Andrew. While we're talking about pricing though, I do like to bring up the fact that it can change how you think about pricing at the store level, right? So in a paper world, and I'm sure we've all been there, you have to go hang your price up tags first before you apply the batch, because heaven forbid Tom grabs that Hershey bar when it says $2.79 on the shelf and he gets to the register and it's $2.99, right? Like you've got to do a very specific order of things to make sure that the customer experience is what you want it to be and the team members are supported in supporting those customers. With ESLs, it's automatic. As soon as that batch is applied to your register, those ESLs update, right? So you don't have to think about the sequence as much, and you might have done things in a paper world to lean into that labor cost and that time cost that you have to spend. With ESLs right here, we've outlined an actual strategy that a couple of our retailers have put into place for clearance, right? So typically, they used to put it on clearance once, and that was kind of it. They tried to hedge their bets and said, if we put it at 35% off, we'll probably sell more than we shrink. We might not make as much margin, but hey, we only have to go hang that tag once. We've actually had a few retailers now say, hey, 6 weeks prior to us doing this reset, this item's been discoed, we want to get it out, we're going to put it at 30% clearance, right? You don't have to pay a team member to go out and hang, print, tear, and hang that tag anymore. So you can just push it down. And hey, you know what? After a week, let's drop, increase it to 40% off, then 50% off, then 60% off, right? So customers are able to take advantage of it, and your shrink should drop dramatically because of this, right? And all of this in an automated fashion in a way that your teams are already doing today. So there's no additional steps for, when you're in BR data and you take the batch and you apply it to your registers, there's no additional steps. You don't have to have a team member go and say, oh, push to ESL. There's no stuff, there's no second, website you have to go to and load in a CSV. It's all done automatically with the help of us and your IoT partners. Next slide. On here is another great call out of a typically easy lift for a lot of retailers with a huge impact is inventory management. So on the left, you'll actually see North State Grocery, Houchins Food Group, and Restaurant Depot have great examples of how they have turned data in their system to actionable data for their team members at the store. North State Grocery actually puts their on-hand onto their ESLs of their products twice a day. So in the morning, the team knows where they started with. If inventory comes in at the end of the day, stockers know, hey, I have this on hand, I can make this action. when you walk the aisle to do your order, you actually have more information on hand to help shape your order as far as how much you actually think you need. Pouchins has taken a similar approach and actually does an aggregate of how many units they sold on average across a given length of time, right? So more specifically than saying, oh, we have 2 cases on hand, they want to know what's the volume of movement that we're actually selling, right? Like how many of these cases should I be ordering? And again, from a customer standpoint, no impact, right? They're not going to look at that 11 down there and have any clue what it means, but it's also not big, bright, and in your face to draw attention to it. But for a team member, some of that tribal knowledge that you might have working in your store for 10 years is now readily available for that new hire, right? When you've got that internal promotion from, just an operator to a manager level, they have that access to the data that typically would be, well, when Andrew trained me, I know that May is our busiest month for chips. So that's why I'm ordering up, right? It's just helpful things that takes data and makes it actionable. Restaurant Depot, in a similar manner, actually has their on hand and how much they have on order. So this is where if you're talking about ordering from larger distributors or warehouses, you can actually put not only how much you have on hand, but how much is coming today, how much is coming on the next delivery day, so that, hey, Tom was helping out, he way over ordered on Chobani yogurts. I see that I have 10 cases coming in. I'm probably just going to order 1, or I might skip it this time. Because again, as I'm sure everyone is aware, we're always so staffed up in grocery. We never have to hire anybody, and everyone always knows what they're doing. We never have to have store directors hop in and do orders because the grocery manager's on the register. Hoping that some people are chuckling at that because I've been there. On the right too is just a really nice call out, schematics and planograms, right? So there's usually intent to where things go on the shelf and why they're there and what they're supposed to be selling. But sometimes, right, in grocery, you sell out of that product. And before someone can go restock it, someone helps out and says, ooh, there's a hole. I got to face this and make it look nice and clean for the customer. But because there's no hole there, when someone goes to do the order, they never reorder the product. And then in 5 weeks, you have a category manager coming to you saying, hey, I brought in all these things. Why are you ordering them? Well, I didn't know we were out, right? They saw a tag, they saw a product, they moved on. So right here is actually an example a retailer uses to keep the schematic integrity and to alert their team member that, hey, this is out, we need to order it. So again, it helps keep actionable tasks to your store level in an automated fashion. So you don't have to have Greg call your store and say, hey, I noticed that you're not selling any of these Slim Jims. Are you ordering them? No, you could just take a look at your ESL right on the shelf. As you can see on this slide, we're talking about enhancing customer experience, and I would also say enhancing team member experience, right? A lot of times your customers expect team members at the store to be the subject matter experts of what's going on in your store, right? The amount of times I have seen corporate support teams out in a grocery store and someone stops them because they're wearing a badge and says, can you help me find this, right? You need to be able to find it because the customer's expecting you to know. Likewise, if someone says, isn't there a coupon for this? Wouldn't it be great if your ESL could just show them, right? As mentioned before, these are QR code based. So you'll see that these allow a customer to literally scan the QR code inside of an app and collect that digital coupon. So you don't have to worry about a kiosk at the front of your store or having a customer potentially navigate a website before they go shopping, right? You can have them walking the aisle. Andrew's already going to grab that Rockstar and he goes, oh, there's a coupon for it. Clip. Super easy, right? You don't have to worry about, oh, well, we didn't send that to the printer last week, so now we've got to print it on hand and it's just not worth the cost. We're just we'll try it next week. We'll try it next week. You could do it all with ESLs with the data that you guys are already using. In addition, you'll see multiple sources down there. So we have Swiftly, we have Inmar, and we have Ibotta. We're not dependent on a single source of information. So if you want to use a QR code to tell more about item attribution data, let's say that your partner is gluten-free and it's really important and you want to make sure that that product's gluten-free, the retailer can use this QR code to say, hey, here's a list of our gluten-free offerings in this aisle, right? We can actually take it a step further with some of this data and integrate with your app, whether it's self-developed or developed with a third party, we can then say, hey, I'm in aisle 2. Can you show me the items that are gluten-free? I want it to be pink. And the ESLs that match those parameters can flash pink, right? And it's a really great addition that really supports the customer experience at no additional cost. So there's no cost for you to say, hey, I want to try and do pick to light. We'll just say, sounds great. How can we get started? Right? Like there's no additional fee there's no hidden switch that we have to flip that says, oh, well, Greg really wants to do this now. I guess we got to talk about how much it costs. Like, nope, these are all offered to you, whether you're utilizing them or not. And again, it's as simple as you want it to be, or as complicated as you feel that it has to be. And we're the ones that can help get you to that point.
Great. Thank you so much, Tyler. Appreciate you sharing that insight. We really wanted to keep this high level today just to kind of give you a taste of what it is that IGA and Aperion can bring to the table from an ESL perspective. But, you know, at this point, we'd love to open it up to audience questions. I've got contact information listed on here for both Tom and Greg. As you can see, Tom covers the Western United States. He's based in Chicago. Greg covers the Eastern United States. He's based out in New Jersey. So, you know, we'd love to answer your questions today as much as possible. But if anything comes to mind after the fact, feel free to reach out to one of these guys and we'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. Does look like we did get a few questions in the chat. So just reading these off. So one of them states, some shoppers are wary of ESLs because they think we, grocers, are changing prices minute by minute to price gouge. First, is that even legal? So I'll answer that first. So, you know, is it even legal? I'm not an attorney, but I can address the price gouging situation. So what we have seen is more often than not, when prices are changing rapidly, they're actually going down because, you know, people are able to act more quickly to changing market conditions, changing prices, et cetera. And most of our retailers who are changing price rapidly, either via, you know, a AI pricing optimization engine or, you know, even just data scraping, they're moving down and they're using those items as loss leaders just to try to bring people through the door. So, you know, yes, some shoppers think that price gouging is occurring based on, you know, some bad press last year on a failed Kroger shelf pilot from 15 years ago. But in reality, price gouging isn't really happening. So it is quite easy to address that when that question comes up.
Andrew, I'd like to add one other thing real quick. Is I have two customers that use you know, the ability to change prices in near real time. So one customer uses produce, and as his produce starts to, you know, become bad, they'll reduce the pricing, you know, at certain times during the day to be able to get rid of that inventory. So if strawberries were $3.99 and they look like they're about to go bad, they'll discount them to, you know, $1.99. And the same goes for rotisserie chicken. I have a client that every day of the week at 4 o'clock they reduce the price of their rotisserie chicken from $7.99 to $5.99 to get the folks coming home from work to be able to purchase that product. So those are two examples of actually reducing the price to be able to give the customer a better experience and for the retailer to move some volume.
I think too, a lot of it is shopper education before you start putting the tags up, right? Or before you start the installation process. So explain to your shoppers what you're doing, that you're here to help them save on their groceries and you're not going to price gouge. The only benefit they're going to get is exactly what Greg said, right? You're able to more quickly give them discounts and those sorts of things. So I think a marketing campaign, you know, that you use on your website, on your social media, on your store, you know, signage as folks walk in your store is going to be super important, and just having that dialogue and transparency with your shoppers.
Sarah, that's a great call out. I mean, you know, the retailer knows their community the best, right? They know the best way to communicate new information to the shoppers. I did some work a couple years ago here in Colorado with a 3-store operator called Legree's. They knew that their local newspaper in Buena Vista, Colorado was well read by their shoppers. So they actually took out, I don't know if they paid for it or not, but they posted an article in the local paper explaining that, you know, they were first to market with barcode scanners when barcodes came out, and that ESLs were actually going to help their limited labor resources do a better job of serving the customers in the store. And so when I was out there for the install, I had all these folks coming up to me saying, oh, these are the digital price tags that we heard about. This is awesome. And, you know, instead of thinking they were getting price gouged, they were excited because that communication was so good from that independent grocer. So Sarah, that's a great point on that communication. There was another follow-up question in here that I think I will shoot to Tyler, since he is one of my former retailers turned colleagues. Is there a surprise benefit to ESLs that grocers discover after installation, as in an unexpected benefit?
Yeah, I think the biggest one, honestly, is that it seems like almost a terrifyingly, you know, big change, right? We're going to digital price tags. Oh my gosh, it's this huge, like, dramatic, people are, you know, picturing robots and very sterile looking environments. But the most common thing that we got as the retailer was customers asking, why'd you guys put your paper tags in a case? Like, they didn't even realize that it had been digitized. And when we talked to them, we said, this actually helps us a ton, because if you think about the number of items just in your center store that you probably don't print tags for as often as you should, that might have that little indicator date of when it was last printed. When we walked the stores for ESLs, we found tags that were a year old, 18 months old, 19 months old, that didn't reflect the price. Was it as impactful as it might have been? Potentially, but it was a great opportunity to just clean up kind of the junk out of the aisles. The other thing too is you start looking at fringe benefits and how easily they can be done. One of my favorite things with the ESL is the ability to scan the barcode of an item and the ESL lights up right in the app. So you can have that seasonal 16-year-old at Greg's store, right, that doesn't know where anything goes. You can give them a card to go back and say, have at it. And you don't have to worry about spending an additional week trying to train them on the specifics of why we keep gluten-free outside of the, you know, baking aisle, things like that. So you could just scan it and go. It was such an easy thing that literally any skill level, from, you know, never touched a handheld before to some of the, you know, potentially very tech-savvy younger generation, everyone's on the same page, right? It's meant to be this simple application. I think one of the surprising things that we didn't really think about, but ESLs really solved a solution for, was country of origin. So produce is notoriously difficult to try and keep like compliant with what you need for country of origin labeling. It's different based on jurisdiction. It's different even within the same county, depending on who walks into your store to check. In a paper world, usually we all had those chalk or those little stickers that you run around and slam onto the signs when the produce comes in the back door, right? But when you get those avocados, you've ordered 6 pallets, you've got 2 from California, 1 from Mexico, 2 from Japan somehow, and 1 from Argentina, right? How do you try and manage that? It's almost insane to think about someone having to run through in the middle of the day and say, okay, are these the Japanese avocados or not? With ESLs, you could literally scan or type in the avocado code and pick the country it comes from, and the ESL updates. So you don't have to worry about, well, Andrew's got the nice handwriting, but he went home. Tyler's going to try and write Argentina, but he spelled it wrong, right? Like, there's all these kind of fringe benefits that are solved by ESLs that you typically don't think of in a planning phase.
Great. Thanks, Tyler. I appreciate that. Our next question, I think, is best answered by both Tom and Greg. So we'll start with Tom, and then Greg can put in his 2 cents. What is the most frequent hiccup in the installation process, Tom?
I wouldn't even call it a hiccup. I would call it a learning curve. You know, it's a pretty straightforward process. You know, the majority of your store during the installation is going to be center store, and you're going to be clipping rails to hold the tags into the shelving. And there's just a learning curve to get the crew ready to go on that. I mean, most of our stores use the employees from the store to do it. So this is the first time they're ever going to experience it. So, you know, I think just budgeting some patience and time to get it going. You know, we try to attend, at least for a day, as many installs as we can, but we're a pretty small and nimble team. So there might be some times that we prepped you on how to do this over a Teams call or something along those lines. So I just think, not trying, if you're doing 18,000 tags in your store, not saying I'm going to knock this out in 1 week, giving yourself and the team a little bit of grace and saying this might take us about a week and a half, and just managing your expectations. It's a fairly straightforward process. We do it almost always while the store is open. It's not disruptive to shopping. You may want to start at, if you have a morning rush, you may want to start at 9 and you may want to knock off by 4 so you don't get the after work crew coming through. But overall, it's pretty straightforward. I would say that, it's just a matter of getting the hang of it.
Yeah, and I would build on that to say that's actually our competitive advantage. Is like, I've spent 30 years with retailers and I'm retailer centric, so I know what you guys think about, what keeps you up at night, that type of thing. So from my perspective, I'm sure Tom does the same thing. I kind of hold the hands of the retailer. I'm actually working, not sure Bob or Rob from Windham, Connecticut's on the call, but he may be. Like, I probably have had 6 or 7 calls with them over the last couple of weeks to hold their hand through the process. Here's what you want to expect. As Tom had mentioned, when we go to installation, I most likely, if I can get there, we'll come up and work with you and kind of teach you how to do it, spend the day. But as Tom has mentioned, you probably want a team of 4 or 5 or 6 people if you want to kick it out in a week. But again, the first 10 minutes, it's clunky. But then after that, 15 minutes and beyond, you're like, all right, this is pretty easy. And I know grocery retailers in general are very resourceful. So I know it's really not that difficult. And again, once you get out of the training area of 15, 20 minutes, you'll be fine. So.
Great. Thanks, Tom and Greg. We do have another question here. Oh, and I think I can take this one. Is it best to do the whole store at once or do one department at a time? Man, that's just such a subjective one. So I'll give you 2 examples here. So I have 2 best-in-class pilot examples, both independent grocers. One decided, hey, I want to buy 5,000 ESLs. I want to distribute them across my entire store, 500 tags in each department. The reason they went with that approach is that they still got the ability to test across every category. So Catman was involved from every single category. They got to all have an opinion and have that opinion realized on how templates should look for their department. We got to do, A/B testing to make sure that, promotional activity was still coming through correctly. And they were able to really, truly get a full test without doing their entire store. Within 30 days, they decided to outfit their entire store. 90 days later, they submitted an order for all 27 of their stores. So that was one great way to test. Another independent retailer out in California decided that, out of their 20 stores, they were going to do 3 right off the bat. They had a cost plus format they did. They had a smaller format grocery in a resort area, and then they had a traditional format grocery store. They decided to just do all 3 in about a month and a half period. That gave them the ability to test digitizing all 3 store formats that they had, and they were able to get good learnings out of that. The commonality here, regardless of how you test, I highly recommend getting every single category involved, because if you only test dairy, you're going to miss out on a lot of learnings from your fresh perimeter. If you only test produce, you may not be able to test anything in center store, and maybe your grocery manager doesn't get to learn what she wanted to. So it's very important to make sure you get an adequate cross-section of your entire store. Bottom line, you're not going to truly realize your ROI until you go full store, because you're still running dual processes. You're still printing some tags. You're still having to have somebody walk the store and hang those tags. If you just want to know that the product works, you could do that in a laboratory. You don't need to install any tags in the store. We've got plenty of retailers that we could hook you up with that would tell you it works. But if you're truly trying to realize the ROI, you kind of have to go full store. So hopefully that answered that question. Sarah, that was the last question I see in the chat. Have you seen anything else come through?
I'll just ask it because nobody has, and I know you guys are all thinking it, and that's the cost question. What's this going to cost me? So is there a rule of thumb you can kind of give people to estimate?
Yeah, sure. So you'll talk to some providers out there who will hand you a menu of pricing and say, hey, it's $5 a tag. Well, I mean, that's all well and good if it's $5 a tag, but there's a lot more than just a tag that goes into the install. You've got software, you have the infrastructure Tom talked about to make the whole thing work. You've got fixturing. Some providers are going to charge you integration fees for somebody like Tyler to take a look at your data. You know, we look at all-in costing, and the it depends portion depends upon, you know, what sizes you need in the store, what type of fixturing, et cetera. But you asked about a rule of thumb, Sarah. I would take active SKUs in the store, and that's not active SKUs in the back office, because everybody tells me they have 90,000 items in their store, and I don't doubt that their price file has 90,000 items. But, you know, as you start to walk the store and count the items, or at least get a swag count of the store, that's your actual item figure that you're going to then multiply by $10. And that'll give you a good ballpark of what your all-in project cost would be. So, you know, if you're talking to another provider and they say, well, our tags are $6 or $7, I mean, that's great, but you really need to understand total cost of ownership. And, you know, on our side of the fence, that would be $10 times active SKUs in the store.
That's
Great
great.
question.
Thanks. Yeah, that answers it. I did want to circle back around to what Andrew brought up at the very beginning, and that was that IGA went through a full RFP, right, for these ESL providers. That's one thing I should have mentioned and didn't. And we got feedback from our retail committee that we had help on that project, and they saw all the different providers and what they had to offer, and based on their feedback, is how we decided to go with Aperion. So I just wanted to point that out too. And I think really the key takeaway here is that you get a better return as you expand what you're using ESLs for. So it's kind of that crawl, walk, run approach, right? So start with the pricing, and then you can expand that functionality once you get that under your belt to, you know, shelf management, ordering, and then you can integrate e-com and digital coupons. And so your ROI just keeps getting better and better and better as you have that connected store experience. So I think that was my main takeaway. So I appreciate you guys being on, and I wish everybody a great day. I don't see any other questions, so yeah, I think we're good here. Thanks, everybody. Reach out.
Thank you,
everyone.
Thanks,
You know
everybody.
where to find me. Bye.